Julian, and we have Beta, and we have Matt Gaudin, and we have the lovely Ella Alexandria Love. So everyone, I want to thank you so much for joining me. We're super excited about this conversation. We're already getting started. I can expect some disagreements to happen this evening, which is perfectly natural. But the ultimate goal, for those that don't know, we are looking to, like I said, bridge the gap. We are looking to find the common ground and build from there. So with that being said, let's get started. Sharell, you had a story that you wanted to share with us, right?
I do. So this week, Auntie Tabitha, as I call her, y'all know her as Tabitha Brown, made an announcement that with her newfound success in Hollywood, she told her husband to go ahead and retire from the LAPD after, I think it was 15 years, so that he could pursue his dreams. And there was she got some kickback from that, but more important than people being upset about what she said for me was looking at how much love and how much of her feminine energy it took to utilize some of that masculine energy to take charge, to tell her husband, hey, you're good, I got this. And for him to be able to say thank you and it not seem, now I'm not there with him obviously, but it doesn't seem as though he feels emasculated by that. And sometimes I've seen where in situations like that, sometimes the men can feel emasculated if a woman steps up that way and says, hey, I'll take over for now, you do what you have to do to get to where you want to be. So that's my take.
Not with that job. I'm a cop in LA. A black cop in LA, and you trying to get me out?
Why?
It don't take no.
Exactly. Target
Yo,
practice.
real talk. I saw the story. It don't take no divine feminine. It just takes some money. Like, I need money. You got money? I'm out of here. Like, you don't gotta tell me twice. I mean, we're not talking about regular jobs. We're talking about, like, you a cop in LA. A black cop in LA.
Yeah.
That shit gotta be stressful.
And not only that, but imagine the amount of notoriety that Tabitha has gotten over the past few years. So, and her husband has been front and center with her husband and her children. So imagine that type of pressure as a very public LAPD cop. This isn't just any random city. This is the LAPD. So I'm sure people are noticing him. Like, that just increases the risk. That increases the danger. So yeah, I agree with that. I don't think that it's so much a whole divine anything. I mean, it's common sense if you ask me. But the thing is, like, so many people, like, this is problematic for so many people, and I just don't really understand why. Because it's like, as a matter of fact, Wendy Williams mentioned it, and that's actually what caused the shitstorm, because she said,
but she's problematic.
True. That's her. She's minding the business that pays her. But yeah, but off the back of Wendy, so many people were like, she shouldn't have did that. She's going to regret it. Now, he's going to have so much free time to cheat. Just like all these ridiculous comments. And I'm just like, if your husband was an LAPD cop, I mean, you know what, even aside from being a cop, like, I don't see the problem with that at all, because they had an actual agreement several years ago that he would do what he needs to do to support the family. She would be free to chase her dreams. And once that happened, then they would both benefit from that in the way that they are now. That is a divine agreement. I don't see an issue with that.
Can I say something?
Period.
Absolutely.
I think a lot of the commentary, and this is just from how I see it, I felt there was a lot of projecting in the comments.
Yes.
When I say projecting, I'm a music guy, and I like to use musical quotes. Babyface brother Kavon Edmonds had this beautiful song called 27.
Wow.
And one of the lines in the song, oh yeah, I'm taking it there. One of the lines in the song that I love, he said, though I've been in love before, I've never felt the kind of love that makes me feel secure. And I think the one aspect of the divine feminine and the divine masculine, the foundation is safety. Like, you need to make sure that your partner feels safe, and tapping into that and expressing that, and they have that. But unfortunately, many of us, and it shows in the comments, like, either we've never experienced it or we've never seen it. So for us, even if the concerns are legitimate, it's a mixed bag, because even as I was trying to read up on it, even some of the specific examples, girl, he's gonna blah blah blah. It was so specific, or it's like, has that happened to you before?
Exactly.
Or happened to your mom before or your dad before? And it's just a lot of projecting. I think we need to see more examples of that. We need to see more examples of an unwavering love, a solid love where it's like, hey, we're looking at the family as a unit, and its success is a responsibility that maybe we both share. And he made her feel safe in the beginning, and she's now making him feel safe now.
Absolutely. I wholeheartedly agree with that. And another thing, just to piggyback off of what you said as far as projection is concerned, as you said, a lot of the concerns could very well be legitimate. You know, that's fair to say. However, people don't realize that they create their reality based off of these inner projections and these inner concerns, because just as much as it is a concern legitimately, the exact opposite could happen as well. And it could be a beautiful arrangement and a beautiful outcome. And what we put our focus to, mentally speaking, is oftentimes what we end up manifesting in our lives. So people speaking all this toxicity into the air off of no basis, not even knowing another life or another couple's life, is essentially creating their own reality, whether they know it or not.
Well, if I could just add this, right? So just because you have a mouth doesn't mean that your voice belongs in everything. I think we live in an interesting world, right? Where, and I kind of follow the
boy.
Here we go. Story, right? My team did warn you. So just like, you know,
Jonas, remember we're being broadcast live.
Leave him alone.
Wendy Williams is proof that, you know, age is not synonymous with wisdom, right? She's like 50, right? So you would think that at that point, irrespective of whatever hurts or trauma you've experienced, you owe yourself a responsibility, right? To revisit that and pull out lessons, right? Because that's really what wisdom is about.
Yes.
Instead, she's definitely angry, right? Bitter and everything else. And it led me to ask myself, is this a person that was authentically looking to have a union in a relationship, or was this a person who was looking to perform a relationship, right? And it didn't quite work out, because one of the things that I do see a lot is, you know, are you looking to have a partner or someone you can show off, right? So the notion of a compliment. So I think that one of the things that I really, really appreciated about Tabitha Brown, I believe is her last name, what she did that gave me hope, because up until I saw that video, I was like, man, I'm good. But what she did is that she actually modeled balance, a balance that I felt was lacking. She used the word we a lot, and that was something else. She didn't get into the I, my. The only time she said my was when she spoke about her marriage collectively, but her language was we, right? And typically, it's a red flag, and it took a really, really good friend of mine to bring it to my attention in a past relationship I was in. All you heard was I. You know? And so this is someone who's thinking about their union. And I love the fact that she talks about their ups and downs together. She ends every sentence with together. And one of the things that I found was very funny and appropriate is when she said, I hope love finds you and holds you tight. You know? And the notion of love is supposed to be this nice performance, flighty, warm feeling kind of thing. Love is a teacher. Love will punch you in the chest as equally as it will hug you. Okay. And so, like, not a lot of people are geared for that. So I think that, you know, irrespective, if a man decides to tell his wife, hey, stay home, I got you, or vice versa, this just in, that's their business. Just because I have a mouth doesn't mean that my voice belongs in their marriage. And I think that people do project. Mac is right. And they bring this element of, well, I know what's going to happen to you because it happened to me. Absolutely not, because, you know, that person's parent didn't raise you, raise them. You know what I'm saying? Like that, those overlapping dynamics, they don't come from your ecosystem. You know what I'm saying? And so forth. You know, one of the worst things you could have is be around a group of people and not one of them tells you when you're fucking up. You know, so I think that when I listened to that dynamic, I was like, well, this is interesting. Like, here's a healthy couple showing us, you know, a healthy prototype. But what prototypes are out there, right? We don't see couples actually working together. We see business mergers, right? We call them power couples.
Yeah.
That's not a marriage. That's not a relationship. It's a business.
Oh, I feel called out.
Okay. There's two different dynamics there. It's two completely different dynamics there. So that's just my take for now. I have more, but I'll stop for now.
I think you guys owe Data an apology because that wasn't
No.
problematic at all. That was dope. Like
Denzel boys from America.
He ain't
you
even
spent all
halfway
the
done.
time warning me about him.
He knows where he's at, so he's cutting
behaving.
himself short. Yo, he ain't even. He told you I'm not even halfway done, but I'm gonna cut it off for now.
We'll finish it.
He didn't even get halfway into the bag. He wasn't even halfway.
It's fine.
He ain't even there
It's
yet.
fine. It's
So he's just warming up. That's what he's doing.
my team gives me a hard time.
We got time.
I raised my hand 15 minutes ago, and Jonas started talking.
Go ahead, Miguel. What you got to say? Speak on it. What you got to say, Miguel?
Hey, yo, I want to say a couple of things, right? I'm gonna do with Jonas right now and say this. First of all, we got to understand that the society and the times that we live in, right? So when people put their business out, especially celebrities or whatnot, on social media, you know you're gonna get a certain level of support and certain level of bullshit, right? Like whatever it is what it is. Now, I had not heard about this story until this morning. And when I read this story, I was kind of confused, like, why is this even a story? You know what I mean? As a married man, I'm like, why is this shit even a story? Like, I don't understand. Like, this is, first of all, there's nothing fucking, yo, the dude is a cop. My wife better make me quit that shit. If my wife got money, you better, even if I don't want to quit, nah, because I'm thinking in my head, like, yo, if he loves being a cop, is he really going to quit? My wife, if she really loves me, she gonna be like, nah, son, I know you love your career, but this ain't it, bro. Unless they put you behind a desk somewhere, you know what I mean? So again, it's kind of like, why is this even a story? Now, it is a story, right? So it's a story because she put it out there.
Right.
Right? And she's made her fame through social media and TikTok, I guess, and all that shit, right? So I got a question, right? Just in the back of my head, the motive for putting it out there.
Oh, I was going to address that.
You know what I'm saying? Like, I got a question. I got to question the motive. Now, it could be genuine to help people understand what a healthy marriage looks like. It could also be like just for clout and your marriage is really in shambles and shit. Like, you know what I mean? Like, I don't know. I don't really care. You know what I mean? But given the times that we live in, and for example, the homie, what's his name? Derek Jackson, the way that, you know what I mean? His bullshit got called out a few weeks ago. It's like, me, because I have a little bit of common sense. Shout out to Jonas, because he will say shit too. Like if he was talking right now, yo, I don't buy shit from people like that. I look at a situation for what it is, and in my circle, I'll discuss this shit like I'm doing now with you guys. But at the end of the day, I'm not either gonna believe you or deny you, celebrate you or trash you because of what you're putting out. Because I don't know. The world we live in right now is a world where
things always what
at the end of the day, man, you're certain.
Things aren't always what they seem.
They're not. But let me tell you this though. Sometimes, even when we don't project certain shit, even we don't intend to put out a certain image, it comes across a certain way. People come to me all the time about my marriage, and a little bit of self-disclosure here, transparency, or whatever. But you know, marriage. If anybody married here, you know, this shit is not easy. It's a whole fucking job, yo. You know what I'm saying? But because I don't go on fucking Facebook and be like, I had an argument with my wife today, man. I fucking hate her for the next 24 hours. Fuck that motherfucker. I hate this shit. Because I don't say that shit, even though I might be feeling it in that moment, right?
Wow.
It's like, oh, you guys have, well, I'm just saying, yo, come on.
Yeah.
Man. Again, if you're not married, shut the fuck up. If you've been married or you are married, you feel me on this shit.
I think we all do.
But what I'm saying though is like, you know, am I supposed to go on fucking Facebook and let you guys know when shit is going bad in my home?
Right.
When my kid was born, did I fucking post all the shitty diapers and blow out diapers at 3 in the fucking morning? You know what I mean? That I had to change, piss the fuck off? No, I don't post that shit. You post a little cute baby, you know, baby like this and shit. Right. You post that because that's what you want to see. But the reality of it is like, we live in a world where people project shit that they want some type of attention from. And most people are positive, but some people like negative attention also, right? As long as they're getting attention, they don't give a fuck. So when I look at that story, I'm thinking in my head like, the only way this is a story, it's if in 5 years or 2 years or whatnot, it comes to find out that she, like Mac was saying earlier, like, you know, like yo, like Shorty took care of him after all these years or whatever, and now he's cheating with him. Well, that's how it becomes a story in this world, in this society.
Right.
Go ahead.
Sorry, go ahead.
No, I'm done. I'll be rambling and shit.
I wanted to pivot, well, piggyback on that, but pivot to Sharell. Sharell, I actually had a very similar thought to Miguel because particularly the language. So I didn't quite understand the language of "I'm retiring my husband." That's what was kind of a red flag for me. Now I could see if it was more so my husband is finally getting to retire and this is why we're celebrating. Did you read any of that in your research of the story?
So I actually had the same problem too. Because the way I heard about the story was my homeboy called me and he was like, he told me the story and I was like, but what do you mean she's retiring her? Like, retiring from what? Like, are they breaking up? Like, what's going on? And then I read it. And then I read it and I was just like, I don't, as a matter of fact, I believe the exact words of my friend was, they need to learn how to do better titles.
But that's what you call it. That's the term.
What did you say, Ella?
When you're a woman or a man and you're the breadwinner and you have enough money to where your partner doesn't have to work, you say, I'm retiring my blank. That's how you say it. That's how you word it.
So that's standard.
See, I never heard that before. So thank you.
Me neither.
Wow.
I heard it a few times. Yeah. One of my coaches, she's a millionaire and she retired her husband. And yeah, she says that. That's the term. I retired my husband.
What's her name? I want to follow her on Instagram.
Her name on Instagram is Synergy Soul. But yeah, she retired her husband. I'm pretty sure he gets to do some creative projects. And there's a similar story. He was doing a job before where he wasn't passionate. And the thing about it is like, let people do what they do. I feel like there are some people who are upset about this. Mind you, I've never watched this. I haven't seen any recordings or read any articles about this, but I've heard enough about it from people. And the thing is, let people do whatever, like, we don't know what their divine assignment is. We don't know what their journey in this lifetime is. How can we judge it? And I think one of the points that I got from what Miguel was saying is like, don't become invested in this. Like, I thank God I'm not one of those people up at 3 a.m. typing paragraphs about what this woman should be doing and what this man should be doing. And it's like, some women actually came to this earth to be the breadwinners. Like, no matter what divine femininity says, divine, masculinity says, those are just options on a scale. And whether someone wants to commit fully to like a polarized relationship where the woman is like strictly in her feminine and the man is strictly in their masculine is up to them, but not everyone is going to choose to do that. And like what Grace mentioned last time, there's kind of like a scale and you can choose where you want to be on that scale. And maybe for some couples, it changes daily, and I just think that if she is in that space to be the breadwinner and wants to retire him, kudos to them. Like, that's amazing. I love it. If they love it, if they like it, I love it.
I love it.
Absolutely. I want to get the Shy Boy over here because he's had his hand raised. Go ahead, Shy Boy.
I'm not shy.
Julian, come on.
You're a little quiet. You're a little quiet, Jay. You're a little quiet, Jay.
He's had his hand raised for a while though, so go ahead. You have the floor.
Quiet and shy are two different things.
Okay, quiet. My bad. I stand corrected.
I'm talking to the fellas because they try to hype you up and they know that it's not the thing.
I can hype myself up though. I'm a team all in myself.
Go ahead. Let him know, Queen. Let him know, Queen. Don't come into her space. What she got going on.
I just wanted to speak to two quick things. One, from reading the story, it was interesting because their agreement was that after 5 years, he would be able to follow his dreams. And he actually had to work for 15 years before she was able to retire, right?
Wow.
So regardless of what he does for a living, because I feel like any job that you don't want to do or any job that's stressful can be tasking on you, period, right? You don't know the negative effects that came from him having to do that job to begin with,
Right.
how it was
Yes.
affecting their marriage, his mental health, his emotional health, any of those things, right? So
Yeah.
my concern and issue is that people don't even care what he was going through during those 15 years. It's just like, man, take your ass back to work. Like, why are you retiring your husband? Like, this is problematic. Like, what are y'all talking about? Y'all don't have any concern or compassion for him as a human being. So
Mm-hmm.
that's first and foremost. Like, I don't really understand, like, what is the threat of him actually following his dreams? Like,
Right.
it speaks volumes about how people think about men in our society and our relationships
Yes.
and things of that nature. But
I don't even
second,
think there is a threat. It's just how it looks. The optics of the situation makes people uncomfortable because it's
that's what I'm
standard.
saying.
It's not
That's what I'm saying.
standard.
The need to respond means that it triggered you.
Yes, exactly.
You are fearful. Maybe this will become a trend. Maybe more men will, you know, like that. That's where the response and the reaction comes from. Is
Mhm.
what does that mean for me in my life, in my household, my relationship, or whatever? When it really has nothing to do with you at all.
Right.
Secondly, to the point that was made earlier, like to men who feel like that's emasculating. For me, the conversation starts with, okay, are we talking about divine masculinity, or are we talking about the socialization of masculinity in Western culture? Because to be emasculated is to be stripped of your role. Who's giving you that role? Like, that's where that starts from. If my
Wow.
role is determined by society and social constructs, then yes, that is emasculating, because your role in the society is to be a man, work, provide, protect, whatever. Like, it's a small box that you got to fit in. If
Mhm.
your role is a divine role and a divine assignment, then there are no boundaries, no limitations on who you are and what you're capable of doing. So when these conversations come up, it's like, okay, we're not even having a divine conversation. We're talking about social constructs and gender roles. You know what I'm saying?
But
So
don't we have to break that down in order to even embrace the divine masculinity and femininity? Because there has to be, once again, that gap, that's bridge between the two, because that's where society is right now, unfortunately. They're under societal conditions. So we're trying to get them over to where we are currently. Go ahead, Miguel, I see you.
No, go ahead. Finish your
Oh,
thought.
no, that's
Finish
pretty
your
much all I wanted to say. And that's pretty much what this conversation is about, how to get people from the point where they are submitting to these societal norms that are basically very limiting for both men and women, and how to get them over to where, I really, really like the point you said, Jay, because you said when it's given to you by society, it can be taken from you. But when it's divine, that no one can take divinity from you. You know what I mean? That comes from within. And that's the point that I'm trying to get both men and women to. And of course, myself, I'm trying to evolve in that thought as well. So go ahead, Miguel.
Thank you. The fact that we're sitting here right now having this conversation lets you know that we understand that there's a need for a conversation like this to happen on a societal level.
Yeah.
Right? Because I feel like all 7 of us in here understand that divine feminine, and maybe I'm wrong, y'all check me if I'm wrong, but divine feminine and divine masculine need each other to coexist,
Of
right?
course.
For us to make the world move forward and upwards, right, we got to coexist
Yes.
in this space, right? We need each other. That's one thing. So I feel like 99% of the shit that we try to do in spaces like this is not convince people, but help people understand that, yo, like, the divinity is within you. Stop listening to the outside voices that want to kind of fuck with you and move forward and upward, right? That's what we're doing right here, right now. Now, what I wanted to say before, Jay, I have never heard Jay, and I've known Jay, what, 2 years now, I've never heard him actually, he can type the fuck out of some shit.
Never heard him talk
For
that
him to
long.
speak that long, I've never heard
Very
him.
well said. Very articulated.
Ever.
You gave me
So
a
you don't
couple
want to say
aha
that.
moments for that one.
Never.
My brother, I love you, man. I needed to hear it. I was sitting here, I was just giving a smile.
You can talk the fuck out of some shit.
Hey yo,
Thank
because
you, Jay.
me and Jay are like a Neptune. But he's Chad Hugo in every space. But today he was in that bitch solo
It's a
from
legendary-
Dolo. You know what I mean? Making his own.
He came prepared. Yeah, definitely respect.
He did. Respect, Jay. Love you, bro. Hey, but what I did want to say was we keep going back to this whole like breadwinner shit. I did 10 years in the United States Army, and let me tell you something about the breadwinner. The breadwinner ain't shit without the fucking homemaker, if that's what it is. Right? So we had to stop talking about this breadwinner shit like it's a thing. It's not a thing. It's a role that you play within a fucking marriage. That's it. That's it. Right? As a breadwinner, and not be specific about the military. In the military, I can't do my fucking job. I can't deploy. I can't work 15, 16-hour days if I don't know that my kids are at home and my home is being taken care of by my wife, right? Because when that shit doesn't happen, the stresses go up, and I'm not mission ready. I'm not mission focused. So the breadwinner part of it, I'm making the money, right? But that breadwinner shit don't mean shit without the fucking homemaker at home taking care of them babies and taking care of that home.
Yeah.
That I can come home to. So we put all this fucking relevance on this who's making the money, who's not. And that's what I'm saying. This story makes no sense to me because homie said, yo, listen, go follow your dreams, queen. I'm not even gonna make shit, but I got this. I'm gonna be a cop. Who the fuck says that shit?
You stuck on that cop.
I am, because in LA and all places, listen, that was the one thing that kind of fucked me up. But I'm like, but for a man to say that shit, or a partner to say that shit, it means that they were on the same page. They had this vision for their marriage. That breadwinner and homemaker, you know what I mean? Like it's like, oh, because I make the money, I'm better. Because I don't. Because let me tell you right now, yo. When I retired from the Army, and mind you, I got a nice little check from the Army, you mean from the VA and all that shit, whatever. But I tried, coming to the civilian world, making like a lot of money. I told my brothers and shit, I don't mind sharing it. And I found myself in such a stressful place for looking for and then maintaining a 6-figure job that I got sick, physically sick, because I was making money, but I was doing shit that I did not enjoy doing. I did not love that shit. To the point that it was like, yo, bro, either you quit or you're gonna die. No bullshit. Literally, I was remember Jay? I was on my deathbed, like, nigga, I think I'm dead. You know what I mean? The stress level was so hard that my physical started. Nah, don't laugh, yo. Why you laughing?
Because you was
you
animated
laughing,
with
man.
it. You were animated with it. You want me to talk about cancer?
Jay, remember I was dying, Jay?
No,
Animated with dying?
Yo, I was legit.
A little
No bullshit.
theatrical, that's
I spent a whole week where I was just disconnected. I thought I was dead.
Wow.
And that shit put things in perspective for me. So now what do? I got 2 jobs right now. One that I just started. But there are jobs that I love, jobs that I find therapeutic for me. You know what I mean? It's massage therapy, and I'm DJing now again. You know what I'm saying? Shit that I enjoy doing, that I help people with that shit. I communicate with people. I'm a people person, right? So I do shit that maybe it's not making me 6 figures. And I ain't saying I miss my paychecks, because I do. You know what I mean? But I choose me, and I choose my health over everything else, including my marriage. So if my wife has a problem with what I'm doing, we're gonna have to sit down and discuss it, because I gotta choose me at the end of the day.
Are you more fulfilled now with your decision on a soul level?
Yeah, 100%.
That's what.
From the moment I did it, and that's it. Period.
Yeah, I feel
that.
Go ahead. Yeah, absolutely.
And I could be wrong, because I'm still trying to formulate this mindset. I think while a lot more people are being more aware of divine masculinity and divine femininity, I think there's a self-reflection piece that's missing, because you got to understand, even for the woman standing right next to you, what helps her tap into her divine femininity, it might look different for you. I think while we might all understand the fundamentals, maybe why it becomes an issue, and not only in this situation, but in other situations, is we got to understand it's going to be expressed differently, because we are different. A lot of us are molded by our experiences. So in order for me to be able to fully thrive and really express my divine masculine, that might look different from Miguel, from Jonas, from Jay, and they all may be divine masculinity, but it's just showing up different ways. And we talked about triggers earlier. we had a conversation about triggers, and one thing I found in even the feedback of not only that, or when people just genuinely say, "Oh no, girl, this might happen, this might happen." Triggers are funny because sometimes they're indications of maybe some unhealed parts within us, or maybe some areas that we still got to work on. We do see a lot of toxicity, and it's funny because we talked about masculinity on our own call, and even right now when you talk about word association, I'll be honest with you. If you take 10 people and you say, what's the first word that comes to mind when you hear masculinity, you're gonna say toxic. That's gonna be one of the first things that come to mind. You may have some that may say divine, but I think a majority of them may say toxic because that might be all that we're seeing. It could be a buzzword, it could be a social media thing, but I don't think we see enough examples of masculinity being shown in such a divine way. Like I feel like I'm deep into my masculinity when I'm making my woman feel secure, or when I'm making myself feel empowered, or when I'm making my brothers feel motivated. That's how my divine masculinity shows up to me, as an encourager, as someone who empowers people. That might be different for Miguel. It might be different for Jay, but there was a self-reflection portion where I had to look within me and say, Mac, this is what you're trying to get to. Now, what's going to allow you to do that? There was an old expression, I'll be done with it, that I once heard that really made me think. It said, the seeds of greatness in a man can only begin to flourish when he found the right woman to water them.
Hey, that's your last quote. That's your last quote.
You don't get to decide that, brother. That ain't your
I
fault.
love
That's
that
not even your
quote.
fault.
I love it.
In the scope of relationships, that works both ways. Like when you have a partner who understands that I can get the best of you by allowing you to be your best, and here's what I got to do in order to make you feel safe to do that, that's going to show up different. When we were all kids, we thought it was just a simple, you find your Mr. Right or you find your Mrs. Right. As we got older, we realized it's not just about finding Mr. or Mrs. Right, but about cultivating and creating the right relationship, but doing so with the presence that it's going to look different in everybody.
Yeah, that's real.
Now I'm down.
Yeah.
No, that was real. Those were straight up gems. Thank you for that. And that
Oh,
actually,
Miguel, fix your face. Wow.
A couple things that
No. I'm not making.
All right,
Wait
let's
a
go.
fucking minute. I'm not making that face at you. I'm making that face that I thought that I had that I want to share. But I said, you gotta chill, Meg. Let Jonah speak. You've been talking too much. You've been doing the Jonah tonight.
Go ahead, Data.
That wasn't for you, bro. Dead ass.
no, I think
You hear me?
I think I'll be brief. So a lot of generalizations, right? So like when one person of a different ethnicity does something, that's just them, right? A black male does something, it's all black men, right? So that seems to be a frustrating recurring theme, especially I'll just be upfront for me. I think that and we all kind of touch on aspects of this, right? How are we defining the thing, the functional taxonomy within the context, right? Divine masculinity, relationships, marriage, etc., partnership, right? How are we defining that? And of course, within a nucleus, it's two people who sit down and they actually define that. So in the meeting of the minds, I think that one of the prerequisites when you decide that you're going to go on this journey with someone is defining it between the two of you, right? Two people sat down and said, hey, you know what? I got you. This gig is going to hold us over, right? And me bringing in money and all that stuff, that's like this much of a relationship, because partner means if there's like a life or death situation, I got you, right? And sometimes money ain't got nothing to do with it. If I got to catch a bullet for you, so much for bringing home a paycheck, right? So it's like, how are we?
We got kids.
We got kids. Right? How are we defining, that piece, right? And I think going back to that word balance, one of the pieces that I keep hearing is there's almost like a false Buddhist construct where, everyone is walking in with these expectations, right? And Buddhist, constructs is that at least 101 says, when you walk into a room with no expectation, you experience truth. So, meaning to say, who are you to you, right? So who are you to you before I approach a woman expecting her to make me happy, right? Expecting her to make me whole, expecting her to et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. Now, I understand the compliment because I don't believe in the notion of the equal. That's a falsehood. I wouldn't date myself, simply said, because that would be the same, okay? But I do believe in the compliment, right? And so, you know, that's a whole different story. If there's something that I don't see, she's going to see. If she tends to go too far, maybe I can help her dial it back, or vice versa. That's the art of the compliment, right? But how are we sitting down and defining these things? And again, as I said before, we now live in this whole, everyone lives in a glass house, right? And everyone walks out of their glass. You know, you're walking around naked in your glass house, and then you get mad that people are looking in. Well, this just it. Don't live in a glass house, and you won't have that problem. So it's like,
Just put some drawers
you
on,
keep
Jonas. I
saying-
told you
you
about
keep
that
saying-
shit, man. It's summertime. Put some
Let me
drawers
finish the
on.
point, Big. And so,
That is
like,
weird.
you know, so essentially what starts to happen, I hate you, Nick. And so essentially what starts to
No, you
happen.
don't. No, you don't.
So
No, you-
essentially what basically starts to happen is that, you know, there's this weird contradiction. You know, it's like happiness now is like dependent on how people react to you, how, you know, what people say to you, how many hearts and likes you get, and everything else. So you don't have that safe environment, that nucleus, that place that you can go to and actually recharge, because it's all fake. So that's why you have to now post aspects of your relationship to get false validation. You're in a shitty relationship, but let's post all of our vacation spots. Where are we? Right? And so on and so on. Right? Because you don't have that. It's not authentic. Because again, it goes back to yourself. And if I'm incomplete and if I'm constantly seeking validation outside myself, I'm going to tether myself to someone who's going to basically help promote that. And we're going to be miserable together because, and I'll say this in closing.
Every time.
I'll say this in closing. Misery doesn't like company.
A whole speech. I hear this shit in closing.
Hey, let me finish my point, right? Misery doesn't like company. Misery likes similarity. And people often make that mistake. Misery likes company. No, misery doesn't. And when you're happy and you go around a miserable person, then you're trying to be around you. But when you're miserable and you go around a miserable person, guess what? You guys get together and you exchange miserable energy together. Misery likes similarity.
Over a drink. That shit is good though.
Okay. And so that's basically what I'm seeing is that, so in this, dare I call it a culture, is that now you have this very interesting quandary where you have old people who are assumed to be wise with gray hair, like spewing this poison to a younger generation. Because I watched Wendy Williams' nonverbal. Oh my God, that was so nasty. I was like, wow, you know, and I'm like, she needs therapy. It's that simple. You know what I'm saying? But this is someone that's deemed to be a prototype. This is someone that's called a model. People are clapping and applauding her perspectives. That's some scary shit. And having
Are they doing that, or are they just watching a train wreck?
Well, I don't know.
Some people are applauding it, yeah.
I'll leave it to the masses, but having had experienced some of that negative energy firsthand, I will tell you, yeah, therapy helps. And it's very easy to walk away jaded, scarred, and with a lot of unfinished business if you don't have a healthy ecosystem to help you balance that shit out.
Yeah. I definitely agree wholeheartedly with everything you just said. And it sounds like the recurring theme, if I can summarize this part of the conversation, based on what everyone's saying, it's like one of my favorite quotes is, it's not me versus you, it's me and you versus the problem. And that's
Thank
how to
you.
approach it.
Yeah.
Why is that shit so hard for motherfuckers to understand?
Was it Boy George, right? Karma Chameleon.
Oh God.
You're my lover. Not my rival.
Not my rival.
Yeah.
You're my lover, not my rival.
Not my rival.
I love
Showing your
that.
age, big dog.
So,
I'm proud of it.
I wanted to mention one thing that also was coming up like collectively here, which is like I do a lot of work with the divine feminine, and now I've been creating a course around helping women you know, tune into their divine masculine that's inside of them, which also reflects the divine masculine that they attract externally. But with that being said, there's another concept that, unless you've gone deep into this whole, down this rabbit hole, you would not know of it, but it's called the sacred union. And so, you know, ideally, that's what we're all hoping to, that's what we're all aiming for, is like having that, because we all have feminine, we all have masculine energy. So the goal is to have them united, you know. And so with that being said, that shows up externally when you have a relationship where kind of like, I think it was Jonas was mentioning that you have this it's like a sacred container where you two make the rules, not external. You know, yes. Only you two know, you know, your past experiences, your past traumas. If you're someone like me in a relationship, it would look a lot about like reflecting on generational, like, you know, what are we here to do with our legacy? What are we here to do? What are we here to heal, you know, in our generational patterns and things like that. But only the two people in the union can decide that. And so with that being said, you know, the divine feminine comes together with the divine masculine. And the thing about it is, when they come together, it's kind of like a weaving, like a spiral, right? And it creates a third energy. So, yes. You know, and I think Jonas was mentioning that too, that she kept saying we, she kept saying together. There wasn't I and a he and a me and a him. It was so much of the we. And that's that sacred union concept of, you know, there's what's important to her, there's what's important to him, but then there's what's important to the whole, you know, which is that family concept that we have lost, especially in the Black culture. Like, what are we doing for the family unit? You know, the importance of that. And so, yeah, I just wanted to chime in about that third energy, that synergy that's created of the sacred union. You know, and so many people, I think, with this whole thing is they're looking too literal at the divine masculine's role and whatever they believe it is and how this isn't right, but they're not considering the fact that they have a third energy there, the sacred union, where so many of you have mentioned they already had a plan. And the thing is, we don't even know their full plan. We only know what they've shared. So yeah, I just wanted to mention that.
Yeah. Miguel, you had something to say? Did you raise your hand?
Yeah, I just want to say, like, more of a question, but do you guys feel like using those terms, right, for people that are not ready to receive it, terms like divine masculine and divine feminine, again, we can sit here and understand that shit and kind of, you know, process it like you just did, Queen. You broke that shit down. That synergy is real, by the way. That shit is real. That third energy, that's some real shit. I want to acknowledge that. But I was sitting here thinking, like, do you guys feel like maybe we scare people that are not there? Words like a word like divine instead of saying words like growth, because that's really what it is, right? When you grow in your journey, in life journey and shit, right? You kind of understand things better and you move differently.
Sure.
Could that be something that come off like intimidating or like I'm better than you type shit when you?
Sharell, did you want to take that? I saw you about to say something.
Yeah, well, like, I think that to a certain extent it is. I really do.
Okay.
Divinity has
she got the green memo.
I'm hyped.
The green memo.
What about me? I didn't get it, but I'm here with the green memo.
We can't hear you, Divinity. It's going now. You're going in and out.
Okay. Oh
no, we can hear you.
You're good now. Damn, you kicked her
So,
out.
fellas, this is Divinity. Divinity, this is Miguel, Jay, Data or Jonas, and Mac. Oh, there you are.
Jonah Data.
Data. I'm gonna start calling him Data.
Do you prefer Data or Jonas? Because I could have sworn you said Data.
No, it's fine. Jonas is fine.
Jonas. Okay. Jonas, Jay, Miguel, and Mac. Everyone, this is Divinity.
Hello. I'm happy to be in, y'all. I'm sorry I'm so late.
No, fine. So Sharell was just, Miguel asked us a question about whether using the terms divine femininity and divine masculinity is perhaps too much pressure on layman people who are just now entering the stratosphere. And Sharell was about to give her
moguls.
Wow.
It might be too intimidating for the moguls.
Not layman, but I just say, could it be intimidating for somebody? You know what I mean? Like, if I say, yo, tap into your divine femininity or masculinity or whatever, right? Does it sound like I'm better than you? I think I'm better than you because I'm saying that shit.
So
you know what I mean? That's what I was asking.
Well, what I was getting at is, like, I look at the people in my life, and for me, I'm the ringleader for this. I'm the ringleader for this kind of thought process in my circle. So when I think about like my friends and the people around me, if I sit up here and say the divine feminine, this is the look I'm going to get. What I mean, versus versus just kind of finding a more approachable way to say it to people, and still, like, it's kind of like when I was a teacher teaching students and they don't know they're learning, so that they're not intimidated by that, because sometimes words can be very, very intimidating.
Layman terms.
Like for me, when we first talked about this, when Grace and I were discussing the topics, I was intimidated by the terms because I didn't want to get up here and look stupid because other people knew about them and I didn't know anything about it. So I had to go do my own research, and granted, through my work within the healthcare field and stuff, I understood the duality, but at the same time, for people who are not quite inclined to their spiritual side, it's not going to be that easy, because for some of us, and I like a lot of people I know, I grew up in a very strict Christian upbringing, so you're not allowed to say divine.
Wow.
So it is kind of finding what works for the person you're talking to, I think.
That's an interesting standpoint, because actually I was going to suggest the opposite to that question. I was going to say, for anyone who feels intimidated by the terms divine relationships or divine masculinity or femininity, they're going ahead of themselves in the first place, because you first have to find that divinity within yourself. And that's a whole journey. So you don't even start off saying, I'm a divine being or so on and so forth. That's just where you come to organically within your spiritual journey. So by the time you usually do get, now, again, Sharell brought up an interesting point, so maybe I might backtrack on this thought, but what I was going to say earlier was just being in that journey. If you are trying to have a divine relationship with another person and you haven't even built the divine relationship within yourself yet, you're already getting ahead of yourself. And then that's when we start getting into dangerous territory, because now you're just following trends. And that's when things become inauthentic and inorganic. Go ahead, Jonas.
Well, I mean, I think what we're really talking about, whether we're using the term divine, is really self-actualization, right? So Maslow hierarchy, right? You got the pyramid, you got all these other needs and all that other stuff, right? So it's like, once I get to that place and I'm able to really truly see myself, my wants, who am I, my purpose, right? I think Mac talked about, identifying as a motivator amongst, us and things like that, right? Once you get to that place, level of realization, then now you can start engaging the spiritual, right? Spiritual terms, right? Divine, if you would. I think that a person might be stuck in their head trying to work out a functional orientation when they hear the divine femininity. Am I close to a deity, or am I just like more spiritual? What does that mean? And just trying to work those dots in their heads. And I think having better facilitation around orienting a person around those words helps. And I think that it might lose a person, because the intention, right? The intention behind the message, right? Is to help people have balanced, functional relationships within themselves first before they seek a partner, right? To ruin or make better, right? So I think that it can be tricky, and I think it's all in how initially people are at least like oriented or introduced to the word before they engage in trying to personify it.
True. I wanted to address some of the comments. I just tapped into the comments that people are giving in our live. So we have Tierra Morgan, who said, people fear what they...
T, what up, baby?
She's been telling y'all out the whole time. She said people fear what they don't understand, which is, absolutely true.
Hey, what the king can't
That's
is Nas.
your man became a monster. She's quoting Nas.
And then we have another good point, as Issa Reed, I'm sorry, I don't know your real name, but Issa Reed says, and also because there are movements trying to box in ideas of femininity and masculinity, like the Boss Up Femmes movement, and hypergamy. Now, hypergamy is a whole different subject. I mean, it plays. You wanted to say something, Ella?
No. I was just saying that's a whole nother live, right?
Oh.
Yeah, that's a whole nother section. We don't want to talk about that tonight. We ain't touching that tonight, are we?
Yeah, but I wanted to actually pivot, and I wanted to ask first the guys a question. I want to ask the ladies the same question, but I want to hear from the guys first. What masculine qualities do you wish women would learn to understand and accept?
Jay Julian.
Jay Julian. I was just about to say that. Jay Julian, please. You all day. Jay
You have your hand up.
Please.
I see your
Love
little
the
hand
video.
up, bro.
Jay Julian, please.
Let's go. Give us
glad.
some more gems.
Come
Double
on,
J,
Chad
please.
Hugo.
This is your bag.
Nah, this is not my bag.
No.
I mean, we all have to answer, so you're good.
Hey, ask me next, because when those two start talking, it'll be over. Ask me next. Damn, Mac. Relax, Mac. Dang.
Relax.
Jay was talking. Go ahead, Jay. What are you saying, man?
Are you trying to find a right way to say something with tact, or you really can't think of anything?
It's both.
It can't be both. Give it to us. Let's go. I don't think any of us mind being offended. That's what we're here for. Let's go.
I would just say, just to at its basic, most simplest form, I would wish that we help women understand the relentless desire of obsession that men have with a mission, a purpose, an objective that they need to accomplish or need to get done. I think that would be the primary thing. How we handle it, how we approach it, how we deal with it, how it burdens us, keeps us up at night. It makes us go into the cave, whatever, however we handle it. I think that's not understood well enough. I think we're misunderstood when it comes to like whatever it is that we're passionate about. I think oftentimes, from my own personal experience, when I wasn't really able to learn how to balance things, it's easy for women to feel like they're put second. And for me, I don't look at things as like a pyramid or a hierarchy, like everything is whole. Like my mission, my purpose is also connected to you if you're my spouse. It's not above you, but it's a part of who I am and what I'm supposed to do or accomplish. And when it feels like that is first, then it becomes a war between me and you, as opposed to us working together to make sure we're both getting everything we want out of the situation so we can accomplish our own journey and path together.
So
wow,
I'm curious because that hasn't been my experience. So it's interesting.
You're single, ladies. You're single. Sorry about
that hasn't been my experience. So it's interesting. I'm interested in learning how that plays out practically because like I'm a very ambitious woman. That's why I was triggered earlier when Jonas was talking about power couples because like I have that kind of mindset. So I'm always encouraging my men to be, ambitious as well. I'm always supporting that. So I'm curious to see how that plays out practically. Like, can you give me an example of what that looks like for a woman who's not, is she just expecting all of your attention to be on like quality time and not working? Like, what exactly does that look like?
It's not even about a woman being too needy. I think that some women are supportive and considerate, but I think that their understanding of how much it takes to actually accomplish what you want to accomplish is kind of distorted. So it's like, oh, you don't need to invest that much time, or you don't need to grind that hard, or you don't need to do this, that, and the other. Like, you can get it done with less investment. And it's like, no,
So
you know what I'm saying? Like, that's not how that works, especially depending on what your goals are. Like, I'm a big dreamer. Like, I don't like trying to attempt anything small. Like, I'm not. Like, at MBK, our mission is to become the greatest generation of men of all times. You know what I'm saying?
All time.
So,
all time, Queens.
Absolutely.
Julian. It's Jay Julian right here, man.
We support you.
That's how I think. I'm about legacy. I'm about breaking generational curses, but not as an individual, but as a culture. You know what I'm saying? As a people, like everybody's life and their quality of their life really means a lot to me. So in order to do certain things, some jobs, some objectives are a 24/7 job. You know what I mean? Like it's your own call at all times. And some people don't understand that. Some people don't appreciate it. Some people don't appreciate you having, or people having access to you. You know what I'm saying? Like at all times. But I literally have people hitting me up like, yo, I'm suicidal. Yo, my husband is beating me up. Yo, this, that, and the other, like real life and death situations going on at any given time. So yes, I'm always available, but that's not for everybody. So some women want you to be ambitious, but then when they actually have to deal with what comes with your assignment, they don't appreciate it. And I don't think it's a conscious thing. I think it's a more unconscious thing where it's just like they don't even understand what's taking place at the moment, and they feel like they're not being valued or they're not getting their attention. And a lot of the time, that's just a conversation that we need to have. You know what I'm saying? Just figure out how to improve things. But yeah, that's
I feel that. Divinity, you were trying to say something. What were you going to say?
Yeah, so it seems like you're saying you want women to have big
Well, you're going down again.
I heard her. She said it sounds like you want women to have more realistic expectations when it comes to like dating an alpha male or a man who's in a leadership role.
Right. And you know, I used to talk to a guy and he would say it's grind time. And so that meant it's time for him to grind and do what he has to do, and all the other stuff, I don't know, like all the dating out, all the other stuff will have to wait for a second because he is grind mode. And I never used to understand what that meant. I mean, what do you mean grind time? Like, explain that. So yeah, I get what you're saying when you're like, you know, for us to be just really and have the understanding when you're saying I got big goals and dreams. Can you just understand and let's find a common ground to meet in the middle on how we can both fulfill our needs? Because I've been having to actually deal with that personally, so I can completely understand about that and having me happy, you happy, but goals accomplished.
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely. Did any of the other guys on here have another point they wanted to bring up as far as what they wish they would accept?
We all do.
To add to that,
We all do.
I think that specifically, I can't make generalized statements, right? I can speak for the men on this call and what I identify as intentional men, right? And so, you know, leaders, right? Leaders pretty much, you know, we set a precedence, you facilitate an environment, right? And then leaders, it's all about engagement. And I think that one of the pieces that for women to understand about masculine energy is that, yeah, if I'm engaged in something that this is my identified purpose and you understood this, whether I expressed it to you or it might have manifested while we were together, right? Then the amount of engagement is going to actually give me the fuel that I need in addition to the other areas of, you know, this goal that I'm already having to negotiate, right? Time, energy, a ton of different personalities, stress, you know, headaches, possible depression, etc., right? And so it's like having a person who can engage, right? If you think about in Roman times, if you were going to kill someone, the first person you told was your wife, you know, because that was your partner, you know. So that's how that works, you because she was all the way in, right? And so what does that mean then? That means that that's the person who has your back. That's the person who, they understand you can't go out to quote unquote dinner, but maybe you can picnic in the studio for 30 minutes or an hour. You know what I'm saying? Like just that kind of engagement. I think it's misconstrued that if it's not all about you, then it's all about me versus going back to that word partner again, right? If I am working on something, i.e. that's going to quote unquote bring in money, but now I have to stop and engage so that you can be happy, there's no money, and then now there's a vicious cycle, right? You're frustrated, you're angry, but then you facilitated your own anger and frustration, you see what I'm saying? Versus fueling that, because if it comes in, it comes into the house, and I've experienced that when I was, a working musician, band and all this other stuff, negotiating grad school and so forth, right? And after a while, it was, you don't have time for your family. I'm literally bringing in like $2,000 a weekend, like, home. Like, help me understand this, right? But that's not how it was, played back. It was, you're out and about. It's like, well, I'm not coming home with peanuts. I'm coming home with money that takes care of shit, But so it's like that kind of a thing, So just really looking at the balance of a person who has a purpose, who's actually working within their purpose, and especially, if you care about your community as a man, I feel that, men who are engaged in purpose, in direction that impacts their community should definitely get added support and added push in that direction, because if you can sleep at night, chances are it's because I did some shit to make the neighborhood better, like those types of things, is kind of overlooked. So I really think that just engagement is very, very strategic, or tactful engagement is so key, because it's two people that makes a relationship work. Equivocally, it's two people that fucks one up too, right? So, why not be the other half that makes that shit really work?
Yeah, I feel that. Mac, you had something to say?
Two things. Part of what's helped me understand divine femininity is being teachable and remaining teachable. And I've had a lot of remarkable sisters pour knowledge into me. I want to mention, the question was asked to us, but to Julian point, from what I've heard from sisters in the past, the issue that comes with that, you mentioned, and I'm not disagreeing with you, Jay, but from what I've heard in the past of the other side of that coin, you mentioned about some things that you're doing, it requires you to even bring that work home with you. You need to be accessible to other people. You mentioned, specific situations. Now, I guess where the conflict arises from your partner is that means you're now, even in our place of peace, you're taking on additional emotional labor and additional mental labor. And I guess the fear is you're reserving all the best parts of you, and you're divvying it out to all these other things, and I'm just getting what's left. And I think something that works both ways. Because and kind of going to Divinity's point as well, the whole grind mode thing. I understand the necessity of ambition and vision and wanting a lot. But I think where the clash comes in the femininity and the masculinity is when we're not balancing that, and we're giving all of us all these different things, and then what's left of that we give to our partner or we give to our families, and they feel shortchanged. They understand, hey, your assignment is great, and this is the requirements of it. But again, as I mentioned, masculinity flows were supported by femininity and vice versa. And your partner wants to be able to help you and be supportive for you, but there's certain things that they're going to need as well. And when you're taking on all that additional labor, you're only one person. You may not be in a mental, emotional, or spiritual space to now give your partner what they need. And I think that sometimes where clash comes in that scenario. But what I was going to mention for my answer is what I think.
Oh, so that wasn't your answer.
No, he's speaking for the.
I just want to say, no, that was an excellent, very mature point that you just brought up. That was.
No, he did. He always does.
From that angle.
we're all on our own journey. And the thing with the divine masculine is, for many of us who didn't see that blueprint, for many of us who never had any positive male figures in our lives, we're trying to create that as we go. It's literally learn as you go. And Jay Julian, who's on this live, by the way, he always tells me, he always tells me, and no pun intended to our host, but there's a grace portion that is missing. And
we talked about this
that
last
grace
week.
portion, there's a grace portion that's missing. And when I say that is, when we're in this unit together, we might not have it all the way. Like, your partner might be still trying to see, okay, how do I show up at my absolute best? What is the absolute best reflection of my femininity? Helping, you know, or really focusing on that and trying to cultivate that. Me being a better man helps me be a better man to you, and vice versa. And I think what a lot of brothers may be needing from the women is not a coddling thing, but there's a grace portion that, hey, I didn't have that blueprint. I'm trying to learn how to be at my best for me, because me being at my best for me, you're going to be directly the recipient of that work that I've done. So for my answer is just a little bit more grace.
No, Jonas. I'm next.
Go ahead, Mac.
Thank you for sharing that.
Go ahead, Swizzy.
Wait, Mac, you didn't give your answer to the original.
No, Mac, keep talking. I was talking to Jonas, Mac.
As we're navigating.
Oh, okay. I thought that was a part of your last statement. My bad.
Hey, my bad, Mac.
Rough Riders over here.
No, Mac. Deadass though. Deadass. I apologize. I saw Jonah with a little hand up, and I know when he starts talking, I saw he put his hand up.
I was gonna be quick.
My bad, bro.
You were triggered.
Hold on, I gotta charge my.
Are you about to really talk?
Come on, Jonah.
You about to really talk, Jonah?
Yeah, he stormed off.
No.
I know.
Go ahead, Mac. Finish talking. I'll go next.
My thing is, as we're navigating through our journey, just some grace and understanding that we're trying to figure some things out within us, because a lot of men, we do want to show up better for you guys. That is a desire. That's one of our goals, is to show up at our best for you guys. We're trying to figure that out and figure out what that looks like. And as we're doing that, and as you're doing it, let's give each other more grace. Go ahead, Mig.
I feel that.
Hey, yo, first of all three of y'all, I know Jonah's got more to say, but everything you guys said, it's been on point. It's been a reflection of what we do in MPK. So I don't want to beat a dead horse and say the same shit over. But I do want to, you know, and I'm almost afraid to bring this shit up because I feel like it's going to lead to a whole new conversation. I don't know. Maybe I'm not.
Do it.
But I'm gonna say it anyways, but I don't expect you know, to draw this shit out. But I think it's fair to say, right, and I might use the terms growth and divinity intersectionally, right? It's the same thing for me right now, right? I think it goes without saying that that feminine energy, that divinity comes for the most part a lot sooner or quicker than the masculinity part of it does, right? Like, we find that shit later on in life. For a lot of us, Jonas, not everybody. You probably find shit at 12. You were 12 years old when you say you were divine, probably. But for the rest of us, I was like 27, 28 shit, right? I think you combine.
Did that see Donald's face?
Dead ass. I bet you he did. He gave me. Y'all didn't see his face.
Oh, you guys expecting me to deny it?
I'm being serious. I'm being dead serious though.
They know me.
I love you, Jonas. You did though. Hey, yo. But that's what, as a society, right? And again, let's talk about growth now. Like, that growth and that maturity level or whatnot comes from the women first, right? Which is what women get hurt more early on and deal with relationship issues and shit. Oh, man, I hate just pimping or whatever the fuck they doing, whack shit. But what happens when it's the opposite of that? You know what I mean? Because what ends up happening is a lot of us as men end up finding ourselves, and me and Jay were talking about this shit on a post he made the other day about how when men reach that level of divinity, right, of growth, right, of openness, of communication, vulnerability, transparency with their partner, but their partner, the feminine, I wouldn't even say divine, but just the feminine aspect of it, is not ready to receive that shit.
Yeah.
Because what happens is, though, because our journey usually come later in life through experience, and I think somebody mentioned earlier about like my circle. Yo, if you think about it, we all have a whole bunch of different circles that we operate under, right? It's not just one circle of friends that I know for myself, I don't have just one circle of friends, and I move differently, still genuinely,
Right.
but you move differently depending on your circle, whether it's your high school friends, your hometown friends, your college friends, your work, whatever the fuck it is. You move genuinely, but it's a little bit different, right? Based on the circles that you're in. And usually for men, usually, not always, but usually for men, we end up with a partner from the wrong fucking circle. Right? From a circle that's not meeting us on the level that we're on, the divine level, right? And by the time you get to that level, you start elevating, you start communicating and shit like that. Yo, I heard the other day, not from my specific situation, right? But from shit that I post on social media. One of my friends told me that, yo, man, you sound like a broken female on social media sometimes. And I'm looking like, what the fuck are you talking about? All these relationship shit, the sensitive shit you post. And I'm like, sensitive? I'm not sensitive. I'm a motherfucking thug. You know what I mean? You feel me? But I post real shit.
Gangsta listen.
I'm with you.
Hey, yo, but what I'm saying though is like the fact that you will come at me randomly and make a statement like that is like, it makes me think, like, you know what I'm saying? Like, so what happens in those spaces? Like, how do we elevate from that shit? Because by the time you get to that space as men, right? And I'm asking you guys for help on this one. I think my fellows, man, I think they feel me on this shit. How do you fucking move in those spaces? Because by the time we get there, most times we already like in love or committed or whatever the fuck it might be to like a person. I see you, Queen. I got you. All right, Ella. I keep saying umbrella. Ella. Yeah, I apologize. You probably heard that shit mad times.
Yikes.
I apologize. But you know what I'm saying? Like that's a difficult space for us as men to be in, where now we gotta choose us. You know what I mean? That's really what it is. As opposed to the relationship, being the protector, being the provider. You gotta choose yourself to separate yourself or to, I don't even know what the fuck to say right here. You know what I mean? But y'all feel me. That's not in your head, so y'all feel what I'm saying, right?
Yeah.
Are you saying that you have to separate yourself practically and in totality, or just find a way to create space for yourself within the relationship?
Think about what you said, though. Think about what you said right now. Again, you elevating. You reach that divinity level, right, of femininity. Could you be with a man that's not there? Period.
I can,
Could you stay
if he's on that same journey.
Right, but what if they're not?
That's a liability.
Together, if that's the case. But if he is on a journey in which he's trying and he just hasn't reached the level that I've reached yet, but he is trying, there's a certain level of space I can create for growth.
Can I say this, though? Is what you're saying based on what society has taught us about the fact that you queens will reach that level of maturity before us any fucking way. So you learn to now, I won't say accept, because that's not what I'm saying, but you learn to like accept the reality of the situation as far as like, yo, my king's I gotta elevate this motherfucker to come and meet me. Society tells us that shit, right? I see posts all the time about the young lady with the Hulk and shit, be his piece, not his whatever the fuck. You know what I mean? All this other shit that tells you like, yo, you're supposed to, as a woman, be here before we get there.
Yeah.
So is what you're saying part of that? And this is why I want to ask, because I know we're going to talk for another hour. We got to go in 30 minutes.
Go ahead, Ella.
Go ahead, Ella. Ella.
Thank you.
Really?
I wanted to just mention something really brief, which is that the situation you were explaining as a man is completely different from the situation that then you were asking her. And I get what you're saying, because you're like, but what if it was you? But at the same time, I want to express my opinion is that as a woman, being with a man who is in a way that you were describing, which sounded like not only are they not there yet, but it's almost like they have there's a bit of toxicity that would then leak into you. And I just want to say, as a woman, we have to remember that we are receptive. We receive, you know, it's not just the sexual organs that show this, but energetically, the masculine gives, the feminine receives. We're like sponges in a lot of ways. And instantly when you said that, I'm like, that's a liability. Like, I could not. I feel like those are what's called trauma bonds, and we do engage with them, and they do grow us. And if you want to be in that and you're like, they're teaching me, they're healing me, great. You know, everyone is where they are. But I will say, in the situation you were describing, it's different, because with a man, if a man is in his divine masculinity, he can actually step into a leadership role where he could elevate the woman. And I'm not saying every single woman, because I don't know how toxic you're thinking, but if it's just a case where maybe you could recommend and find her, maybe if she needs a therapist, and you're like, hey, I recommend therapy, and if she's open, okay, and then you do that. Or maybe it's a situation where, which we don't see this a lot, but you get kind of like a marriage counselor, or you find an elder couple that you guys really like can relate with, that can counsel you, someone who's in a situation where you would want to be in. Of course, not just anyone, right? I'm very firm on, like, you know, don't take direction from someone who's not in a position you would want to be in. But those are just examples where the man could lead that relationship into light, and she could elevate, but that's because he has that leadership and guidance. You know, we didn't really define divine masculinity, but you know, I think of it a lot as like leadership, guidance, protection, provision, which is not just physical, but in all ways, spiritual, energetic, everything. So that's my opinion on that. Like, the man, if he feels called to, and again, this is his decision because he would be in his leadership role, he could elevate her and the relationship as a whole. Do you
feel like, you know, 100%, I agree with you 100%, except for one thing. Not that I disagree with you, but there are instances where in order to lead, you have to have people willing to follow.
Yes.
And that willing part of it is like, okay, I do want to, and again, that's part of it all, right? Like, when you got somebody ready to follow, as a man, if you're there, you can do that shit. Yo, let's do this, right? But if that person not ready to follow, let's take, for example, therapy. Yo, I think you should go to therapy. And the person say, you know what? Okay, you're right. And now go to therapy. But you're going to therapy because the man said so, not because, or the partner said so, not because you felt like you needed that shit. You just trying to check the box and shit the motherfucker up, or whatever the fuck it is, right? Oh, sorry, you got kids over there. I'm sorry. But whatever it is, I apologize, y'all.
No, she's got on earbuds. She just...
All right, cool. But you know what I mean? Like, so you show up. Because now, mind you, a lot of men do this part right here. But I'm flipping it on y'all, right? Because women do it too. But a lot of men do this also, right? So when your partner says, okay, yeah, I go to therapy, but they don't go to therapy because they think they need it, it's more so because they want to check that box and make him happy and make her happy. I'm like,
yeah, that's why I said it depends. It depends on the situation. You know, this is a very like general question. It really depends on the situation, and I think that's where the man would need to use his you know, his leadership energy and decide, is this a ship that's worth steering?
So that leadership part is not really about specifically that person. It's about just you as a leader, like choosing yourself sometimes and walking away from bullshit. Damn, this is the best podcast ever. Yo, y'all gotta come through.
Absolutely. Okay, so
this is dope shit.
I want to hear from my ladies now. I want to ask you all the same question. What feminine traits do you wish that men would learn to understand and embrace more? And you know, you guys should know my answer, but I'm gonna wait. Mac, you better chill. So Don't start with me.
And then Maggie put his Glocks back and put his ear out.
You guys want to go?
Don't be shy now, please.
I was gonna say the chaos. I mean, we talked about this last week.
We're all gonna say the same thing.
Well, we talked about this last week, and you know, there's a bit of this energy of the chaos, you know, that we don't see a lot talked about in mainstream, and the way they portray it is totally immature. You know, they're like, oh, the woman is on her period, leave her alone, she's a monster, or whatever, right? But there's so much more to it, whereas like each month we literally, like, the way that the women's cycle is different from men. Like, not to go in deep, but energetically the man is ruled by the sun. The sun only changes signs every 3 months, you know,
Right.
whereas the woman is ruled by the moon. The moon changes signs every 2 to 3 days.
Every couple days, yeah.
So when you want to
Okay, Erica Badu.
So when you want to talk about like mood swings, yes, but remember, we're embracing all of the cosmos in a way that men do not. And again, there's no hierarchy. There's not one that's more important, because thank God the men only cycle in that way, because we need that logical. Like I thought, you know, I really appreciate a man's ability to look at things from a bird's eye view, from a larger perspective, from more of a logical standpoint when I'm in that emotion. And I think we all have our gifts, you know, and that compliment. But I would say, yeah, I wish, and I really just encourage men to learn more about women and their cycles, and also appreciate the fact that, you know, we go on these descents like into darkness, but in that is where we find so much of our wisdom. It's where we strengthen our intuition, which is like, you know, the gifts that I think Jonas mentioned in Roman time. If a man was going to strike, he would tell the woman first. But did you also know, with the tradition of the red tent, when women went into the red tent and they were on their moon time, they would consult.
Exactly. Yes, I know that. Yes.
When women,
You know that
when
shit.
women are bleeding, they
are
more. When women are bleeding, they're more sensitive, they're more psychic, they're more receptive, they're more in tune. So actually, women would go into the red tent, they would consult their oracles, whatever they use. You know, nowadays we see women using a lot of divination cards, but they would consult and they would connect in. And guess what? The men would come to them after the red tent and say, should we do that war? Should we strike this? Should we do that deal? And the woman would say, not at this time, or this is what we got. Yes, it's time. And the men would listen. And so I feel like a lot of us don't know that history. We're coming back into it, but like, that would be my thing. I would hope that men would appreciate women's intuitiveness and their just their intuition and their psychic powers, and know that also going into the darkness and experiencing chaos and mood swings is all part of that.
Yes, exactly. You have to take the good with the bad. And you know the term that I like to use the most,
Fellas,
which is not just
give it a finger snap.
Hold on one second. Not just appreciating or, you know, learning about and understanding everything you just said, but being that emotional containment for us within it. So that's how you appreciate, practically speaking, because just like you said, what? Go ahead, Ella.
No, I'm agreeing with you, and I'm just like, I love you. I love you. She said with the practical. I'm like, that's that Capricorn. I like that.
You know, I gotta always be
what
with that.
Somebody said Capricorn. Cap gang here.
Yeah,
no, Ella's Capricorn. I have heavy Capricorn energy. Yeah, but that's what it's about. Practically speaking, that is how you appreciate and understand that chaos, you know? And I love that you said that chaos, or the intuition, the power of our intuition comes out of that chaos and comes out of that emotion. So when you are talking about the moon changing signs every 2 to 3 days, that's literally our emotions going up and down, up and down, up and down, but it's accordingly. It's with divine intervention, and it's divine guidance that we're tapping into when we do that. So you just said it absolutely perfectly, but I just wanted to add the piece in about understand that in such a way that you can be our emotional container or containment, and understand, hey, this is just what it's going to be. You know, and I always say, for us, the work for women is, I'm not trying to give us permission to just be absolutely chaotic without regard and just act any kind of way and you guys got to take it. I'm not saying that at all. there's still a responsibility that we have to take as well within our emotions. And the best way that I have found is you have to find balance between emotions and logic. And you have to do that by being willing to express your emotions in a logical fashion. That's how you find balance. Yeah, so don't be afraid to express it. And we need a man with that we can openly express it to. But as a man, you should help us walk through our emotions logically, because sometimes we don't know what the fuck we're talking about. Sometimes we're just like, I mean, all our emotions are all over the place. Sometimes we have no, so solid for them. What?
And you think men can be emotionally intelligent enough to walk you through that shit?
Absolutely.
Well, that's the work that men have to do. That's the point. When I say walk us through it, let me be clear, because I'm a life coach, right? And the technique of a life coach is not giving you the answers. It's not telling you need to go here, here, and here. It's literally helping you walk through by turning you back into yourself. So I'm asking you the right questions so that you can open your mind and see that what you're talking about may not necessarily be logical. You may be tripping a little bit, or maybe you're completely legitimate. But in either case, that's what I mean by helping us walk through it, just talking it out. And don't sit there and be like, oh, you're going crazy or you're tripping. And no, like, actually sit us down and, okay, that makes sense, but let me give you a different angle. That's what I mean. So don't try to tell us where to go. Just be our emotional containment.
And sometimes we just want space.
Hold on, man. Ella's talking.
I literally just saying sometimes we don't even want a solution. We just want you to hold space.
Thank you. That part. Yes.
Give us a hug. Sit us down.
Affection is huge.
Yeah.
Rough feet, fellas. I can teach y'all how to do that shit.
And sometimes we just need that reassurance.
And then that's another thing. I'm sorry, go ahead.
Work it through. I was gonna say, and then we could just work it through. If our man could say, I'm just gonna speak for me, if my man could say, you know what, I know you're a bit emotional right now. Let me just, handle this, or you can just sit down for a second, just breathe through it, calm down, and we'll work it through once you've done, going through that emotional wave, and it'll be okay. It'll be all right,
Yeah.
Right.
I mean, it really be like simple like that. If y'all feel like y'all got an emotionally unstable woman, try saying something like that and see what happens.
And I want to ask you ladies a question on this call as well, because
what happened? Maybe it's
no.
Anyway,
emotionally unstable woman.
Nah, Grace, yo.
I'm just saying.
Hey, Grace, go ahead, man. Yeah, I ain't gonna say it.
Anyway.
Fellas, be quiet. Quiet down, fellas.
Do not recommend.
Be quiet, Jay.
I want to ask the ladies a question, okay? Because one thing, in talking about me calming down when I am too much in my emotions, a lot of men don't understand that affection, like physical touch is my #1 love language, right? And I know it is in cases for a lot of women. A lot of times when I am being emotional, I just need attention. And sometimes that attention is in the form of like Divinity said, a hug, a kiss, something like that, And a lot of men don't understand how much power they have over me with that, because no matter what I'm going through, no matter how I'm feeling, as soon as I'm giving the jewels. No, I'm kidding. No.
You are saying too much right now.
It's true for a lot of women.
Somebody taking notes right now.
This is true for a lot of women. So that's the point. It is game.
Yeah,
it's absolutely game that men don't understand. I cannot stand y'all right now.
You invited him. You should have known. Mac didn't tell
Oh,
you.
wow. We still haven't even gotten to that.
That's Julian, double J.
I thought Mac told you you were bringing in here.
But no, so I was saying this is true game, because it's true, maybe not for every single woman, but for, I would say, the majority of women, at least that I know. It's like, no matter what the case is, it's like, I'll even say this. A lot of times, and a lot of people be like, and not to be vulgar, but I just need some dick. We hear that a lot, right? I have an attitude, or she has an attitude, I just need to get some dick. And
Matt, calm down, dude. What the fuck was that, bro? We're in a whole Facebook forum right now, son. This motherfucker said, yeah. Like the best thing. Like the best thing.
In women's groups that is said, I don't know.
What'd you say, Ella?
I said he acts like he hasn't heard it. Maybe this is something but this is a common term in women's groups. You'll see it a lot.
Yes.
Yes.
I mean, from the man's angle, I've heard it too. You know, she has an attitude. She just needs some dick. So I was going to say, a lot of times that is the case, but more so than the sex, we just need that affection. We need that attention in the form of physical touch. So I can't even think of any issue that I've had with the lover in my mind in which a hug or a kiss would not have completely calmed me down. You know, a lot of times I don't even need you to walk me through talking. I just need attention. And I don't know how to articulate that in the moment. So when you just give me that, the physical touch has, I'm a tantric therapist, right? So I believe in tantric sexuality. The whole Eastern modalities of sexuality, I believe in. So I wholeheartedly believe that sexual energy is healing, very literally. So when you touch someone and you touch them in a loving manner, it gives you that healing type of energy. So any chaos or, you know, crazy energy that's happening inside of you, any inner blockages, that immediately begins to dissipate once you touch someone in a loving manner, especially when you guys are, you know, in a romantic relationship. Go ahead, Miguel.
Yo, real quick, and because I want you to finish, but I do want to say this though. Yes, very important, but also, because of my job, I've learned that the non-sexual healing touch from a man to a woman,
yes,
is also very therapeutic.
Yes, very much so.
I've had women get on my table very much, and mind you, I
get on my table.
For real?
I ain't say my bad. I ain't say my bad. That shit in school. Nah, come on, man. I'm trying to be serious right now. Y'all ain't even hearing me, man. Damn, bro, I'm trying to be serious.
We see the videos on Instagram.
Oh!
All right, man. All right. No, dead ass though.
What's his Instagram?
Right. Let me get that out real quick.
Can we get the ad? I'm trying to see something.
I'm sorry, Miguel. Go ahead. The floor is yours. I'm sorry.
Nah, let me tell you why though. Let me tell you why, because what you were saying is very true, right? But I also want to make sure that we understand that it doesn't have to be a sexual touch, but a lot of times that dominant, that masculine, that touch from a man on a woman, right?
Safety.
I won't say that on a massage table, because the woman, the person on the table, controls the fucking session, right? But what I've learned is through experience, not even through like books and shit like that, because school don't teach you this shit, but through experience, is that I've had women get on my table. I'm 6'7". I'm a big dude.
Damn.
You know what I mean? So when they
oh God!
I just like you said, dance. It's like a reaction.
That just rolled out.
It's a reaction. All right, let's get back serious. Let's get serious again. Come on, man. But yo, whatever happened.
You just need to take yourself seriously at this point.
Let the joke breathe a little bit.
I'm letting it breathe right now. Go ahead.
All right, go ahead.
And I come back to it. All right. So whatever happened is, I've had women, for example, I had a young lady, her best friend got her a massage for her birthday, right? And she was a little shocked that I was there. You know, she didn't know what was happening and shit, which, by the way, I recommend never giving a surprise massage on the spot to your friend. That shit is not normal, because it's like, you could be coming from the gym or some shit, and now she's uncomfortable, and now I'm like uncomfortable. You know what I mean? I want to smell that shit. But whatever. But
like side note.
Dead ass though. Take a fucking shower.
Right.
Wash your feet. Wash your feet, please. Nah, dead ass. I've been there.
Yeah.
So, but what I'm saying though is like, I've had women get on my on the table, not my table, on the table, and be completely like tense and like shaking and shit, and like I had to be like, listen, like you got a whole spandex bodysuit on, take that shit off. I might just be beating you down. This is a fucking Swedish massage. I gotta put oil on you. I can't do it if you have a spandex suit on, right? And mind you, and I'm being dead serious, man. Can you fucking be serious for 1 second?
You talking about Swedish massage?
You motherfucker. 'Cause I'm serious, yo. Like the way
I hear you.
the way a fucking woman like relaxes as the touch goes on and the music is playing and shit, and the way they get on the table versus the way they get off the table, the confidence level, the security level, the relaxation or whatnot, he means something.
That's it right there. The
Not
security.
just on a tantric sexual touch, on a non-sexual, you know what I mean, like platonic type, just healing fucking touch. He means something.
Yeah.
And that shit, and I was talking to Jay about this shit. That's one of those things that lets you know that when that masculine and that feminine combine, it's a fucking thing. Like it means something.
Yeah.
It means something. You know what I mean? So again, not to take away from the tantric, because tantric is a whole different level.
Well, no,
Yes,
and that's the thing. Tantric, its foundations, its root is in sexuality, but it goes so much beyond that.
It's about self.
I like to differentiate between sexuality and sensuality. So actually,
Thank you,
both.
man.
I believe sensuality is key. And sensuality does not always have to necessarily be sexual in nature.
Exactly.
But tantric is beyond that, you know. Tantric, yeah, you're hitting the erogenous zones, and you know it might stir up some sexual feelings. Sure, most of the time it does. But even beyond that point, it's a meditation. It's a meditative practice where you're just giving all your focus and energy on your partner, whether it's sexual or otherwise. You know, so I'm definitely there with you. I wholeheartedly agree. I do want to say, though, you know, we are running out of time, unfortunately, and I do want to thank everyone for participating in this conversation. It was so much fun. If you guys would be back for a part two, I would absolutely love it, because there's like 4 whole questions that I still haven't asked. So if you guys are interested,
it could be a series.
You said what?
It could be like a series.
You said what, Matt? Who's being serious?
It could be a
This could be
series.
like-
It could be a series.
Oh, a series. If you guys are down with that, I'm 1000% down with that, because this conversation was so needed, so necessary, so healing. And
funny.
all 4 men are outstanding, you know, and I appreciate you willing to join this call. So thank you guys so much. Does anybody have any parting words before you go?
Yeah, actually, a couple of things.
Of course.
Of course you
There we
do.
go.
So you done?
Close us out.
You
Close
done?
us out, King.
So
I love you, bro. I love you,
one
bro.
of the things that I recognize.
Drop your
is
Instagram
that
on
I'll let it. Am I supposed to let a joke breathe now too? So here's the thing. So one of the things that I recognize that's needed to be, I guess, said at some point is that women are basically given permission to express their emotions first, right? And so some of the things that Miguel talked about earlier, you know, boys, right? You cry, they tell you hold it in and everything else, you know, act tough, etc. Then you become a man and you got all these welling feelings and you don't know what the hell to do with them, right? And so Ella was talking about, you know, anima, animus, right? So, you know, Carl Jung talks about that, you know, and when you talked about the tribal reference with the red tent, there's also another tribe of men, I believe it's New Guinea. What they would do is that because they actually revered women so much that they felt that women were actually more pure than men because of their cycle, they actually get rid of bad blood. So what they would do is literally actually cut.
That's the only reason?
Part of, let me finish the point, Meg. So they would cut a part of their sacks and stand in the ocean and allow bad blood to flow out of them.
Excuse me?
So you have
that shit again?
You have like
we need a whole nother live for that one.
Yes. So you have.
They did what, bro?
You have cultures. This is the norm with us, by the way, ladies. So you have cultures. You have cultures like this, where masculinity is expressed differently, and in doing so acknowledges the power of the feminine. right? But also what's popularized is this control dynamic, right? I'm a man, I'm in control. If you know, a woman is in, so you know, it's like we're fighting for control, and that's not the point. You know, we're fighting to come together and go on a journey together. You get in a car with someone you like, you don't even think about the destination, right? You're just driving. You get in the car with someone you don't like, you're like, when the fuck am I gonna get this motherfucker out of my car, right? And so it's a journey, you know, just with the right person. I think conversations like this, as was stated, you know, are definitely necessary. I think that one of the triggers for me is that oftentimes I hear women say things like, oh, I'm looking for a good man. And as I observe closely just a lot of the nonverbals, I realize I'm hearing this from a bad woman. And it's because typically they don't know themselves. Not that they're bad, but in the sense that there's a disconnect in who they are and what they truly want. And then there's this expectation that someone else is going to give it to me, and vice versa too. There are men like this too as well, you know? So I think that one of the things is that encouraging people to really, really get into the functional meaning of words. I'm a big believer in definitions. You know, before you start engaging and trying to imitate a trend, you may soon discover maybe that's not for you. You know, discernment is a big piece in all of this. And I think that this is a very wise forum. And I think it's dope what you women here have created for people. And I one of the things I still argue, and then I'll shut up, is that there aren't enough role models for the younger generation, right? Men, you know, we struggle with that now because all of our heroes have been labeled all kinds of things other than their heroic acts. And you know, needless to say, what's going on with women, right? I mean, we currently have the first Black female vice president, and that's not even news anymore. That messes with me. You know what I'm saying? Like, seriously, like, really? You know, so it's like, where are the real, you know, prototypes? You know, I don't care about hype. I don't care about fashion, like functional, you know, relationships. You know, we hear that word legacy thrown around a lot. You know, breaking generational curses isn't about money. It's about patterns. You know, so people don't really fully get those things. So I think that conversations like this are very necessary in actually challenging people to level up, challenging people to level up, challenging people to come up.
I can't.
You know, so I think that, and that's why we don't we don't look at Mac when we're talking. Just ladies should know this.
We don't.
You know, so I really think that it's important. I think that it's just very, very important that we have these types of forums to really challenge people to just think of themselves, you know, a little bit more deeper before connecting with someone else.
Absolutely. And you know what? That is exactly what the goddess movement is about. The goddess movement is, the vision that I have for the goddess movement is creating goddesses. But what that means specifically is helping women embrace their highest potential within their divine femininity, so that we can be that everything and more, not only for ourselves, but for our loved ones, for our men, for our children, for our community, so on and so forth. So a lot of people have taken this movement and, oh, we're just focusing on ourselves, worrying about ourselves. And it's not a selfish movement. We have to turn into ourselves before we can help others, you know. Absolutely. So that's what this movement is about. Go ahead, Jay.
Tell them, please tell them. Please tell them.
Tell them what?
Close us out, Jay.
Okay,
We want to hear
I'll
from
tell
you.
them when you finish. I'll tell them when you finish. You know, I thought we were on the same page, me and you, Chad Hugo and Sharell, but we're not.
No, because I love how you just described the goddess movement, which really is connected to the question that I want to pose, possibly for another conversation in the future.
Again, what I said.
My question is, do women really want men to show up healed and whole? Because in order for us to do so, we also
take your time before you answer that question.
We also have to turn within to start addressing some things that we're dealing with. Like, a lot of men are dealing with decades of neglected pain and trauma and emotion. Like, so even to the point how we started this conversation about Tabitha and her husband, right? They're doing that for a reason. Don't know what their personal reason is, but they're doing that for a reason, right?
Right.
When a man needs to heal, that can be a long period of time.
Yeah,
that's a life journey.
that might mean
this on
you
Lost
need
Live, though.
to downgrade your lifestyle. That might mean like a lot of things have to be sacrificed in order for that man to actually heal and show up whole and
Yes.
healthy
Right.
and be
Yes.
an integrated, superior man. And it's interesting because a lot of women say, I want you to show up healed, but then when you have to do what needed to be healed, then it threatens their superficial desires and needs and things of that nature.
It turns social norms, though, is what it
And
is,
social
though.
norms, even to that point, like, oh, he's being emasculated or whatever. Like, so that's my point, because when it comes down to it, it's something people say kind of like because it sounds good, but it's actual work, it's actual sacrifice, it's actual like empathy, compassion, like a whole plan on healing. Because women, and I'm speaking generally, not for all women, right? But the space and the environment and the culture was created for women to be able to tap into their spirituality, to tap into their intuition, to tap into their feelings. Like y'all had your whole lives, and I'm saying that generally. Again, men, a lot of us are now for the first time tapping into that, and that is overwhelming. You know what I mean? Like that can be a flood of emotions and a flood of just different things that could really paralyze you.
Absolutely.
I can answer that question, but do you want me to answer that now, or do you want us to wait until next time to answer that? Do you want to leave the little cliffhanger?
Cliffhanger. I think it's a cliffhanger. I think it's a cliffhanger.
Because I know y'all got to go. I can really speak to that one, at least from my angle. But if you want that to be a cliffhanger, then we can do that. We'll leave with that question next time. How about that?
I think that.
Yo, can I ask you guys to join our group?
Yeah, I think can we make that because that came up for us in the first week. So it's really interesting that you mentioned that, because we actually talked about that on our first call. So maybe the next call could be something around how to support, how is the divine masculine needing support at this time in their healing, or how can we help them with their evolution, or
just even the more direct question that he asked, do we really want men to show up already healed? Because I have a backload to say with that, but again, I know you guys got to go. You guys have another engagement, to commit to. So we'll really leave that.
Yes, absolutely.
Can I just say this real quick though? Real quick, very quick. First of all, thank you for having us here. I feel that the universe know what the fuck is doing and shit. The fact that
I love that you said
niggas laughing. Yo, I'll be honest. Out of the four of us here, I'm not eloquent, but I'm passionate.
I love that.
And I'm okay with that shit. But I tell you this much, man. Like, it's weird that a week and a half ago, so a lot of us, few of us linked up to see a way forward for our group. One of the things that came up was like, yo, listen, like we cannot sit here and attempt to be the greatest generation of men by just being, circling up twice a week as men and talking about problems and shit like that. When as a tribe, as a community, we need to address shit as a whole tribe, right? Like, you know what I mean, women and men. And we tried it already, having what we call a sister circle, you know what I mean, kind of to mirror what the fuck we're doing as men. And I've, tried it, failed, because it was a different energy, different space. And we tried to like pour masculine energy into this shit, which wasn't needed. But talking to you guys tonight is like, yo,